What does newspaper mean to you?
Uh, that's Chris.
Okay, everybody, we are back with another super special guest. Today we're joined by a pro fighter, Zak Kelly. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just get started. If you just want to tell people where you're from, a little bit about your upbringing and stuff like that.
I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've been fighting for about 15 years. Started in 2010 with amateur kickboxing, and then transitioned over to amateur MMA, and then pro MMA, a little pro kickboxing, and then took a few years off, and then came back and have been fighting. Did one pro kickboxing fight. Now I'm on a 2 fight win streak in pro boxing.
Yeah, that's awesome. What sparked the initial interest in fighting for you, just to begin with?
I mean, as like an amateur, I got in a lot of. I was a little bit of a rebel as a younger kid,
Mm,
and I got in a lot of scraps. In the schoolyard or pretty much anywhere.
mm,
Usually for the wrong reasons. And then, yeah, I was watching some boxing and then started watching some UFC, and I saw some kids in school that were wearing these T-shirts that had like you could tell they were from like a gym. They weren't like yeah, they were just like advertising for like a martial arts school. And I
mm,
remember walking up to these kids and asking them where they got those shirts, and they said, "Oh, well, my gym." So I said, got some information about it, and then I started training there, and that was my junior year of high school. I think I was like 17 years old, and
mm.
um, and I never stopped ever since. I never got another, you know, street fight or backyard fight. I just kind of fully engulfed in training, and that's where all that energy and pent up rage went. And then over years, I mean, just calmed down, and now I just am passionate about competition and helping other people and helping people find that outlet that I needed at a young age. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And then one of my first coaches just asked me if I wanted to do an amateur fight, and I said sure. And I mean, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, growing up, did you play any like team sports or anything like that?
Um, I played soccer like most kids do, but I
Mhm,
was pretty little, like from like the maybe first grade, or kindergarten, first grade, something like that, up until I want to say sixth grade. So
mhm,
not anything when I was in high school. I moved around a lot,
mhm.
from sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. I went to three different middle schools in 3 different years. So I mean, that's probably why I got in a lot of fights. I mean, not saying that's the right thing to do, but each place I moved was like vastly different from the last. Whether it was like a suburban area to an inner city area to a more rural area. So I just kind of felt like I never really fit in too good. Skateboarded a lot. I lived in Westchester a good bit when I was a younger kid, which is real heavy like skateboarding culture.
Mhm.
That's where like the Jackass and Viva La Bam and all that. I was like my generation.
Yep.
Um, but high school, man, nothing. I was just a troublemaker until I found martial arts.
Yeah.
Kickboxing literally changed my life.
Yeah. No, I got you. That's amazing. I mean, that makes sense moving around and getting into fights and stuff like that. That's kind of you hear that a lot of the times. But then you get into training and stuff like that. What was that first gym that you were at then?
Um, it was unofficially called Certain Victory Martial Arts. It
Mm,
was just a guy. His name's Rich Castetter. He would teach Muay Thai and kickboxing. They just kind of had like a back room, like a cardio room, where
mhm.
they would teach different classes, and he was doing that until he could get his own school. Now he lives in Boston, Massachusetts, and has his own school out there. I check in on him every now and again. Looks like he's doing a lot of great things.
Mhm. Yeah. So then after you make that amateur debut, was that MMA or was that kickboxing? I'm sorry.
Kickboxing. Yeah, I had probably a dozen kickboxing fights before I went to MMA.
Wow. Okay. And then that first fight, like just after you get that first one under your belt, like how did you feel afterwards? Just competing for the first time and actually getting out there?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I was always the tough guy growing up, or at least the guy that thought he was tough. And then I went to my very first kickboxing fight, and man, I was so nervous.
Mm,
Um, I didn't remember how to fight. I didn't remember anything I've ever trained or ever did, and I went out there and I got my butt kicked. I mean,
mm,
I had all my friends, my family, some of my coworkers from that time, just all these people like, man, he's actually doing it. All these years he talked about it, and they all went, and man, I got my butt kicked. And
ooh,
I remember after the fight, like everybody left, and my buddy and I were driving home, and I was like, I got to do it again because
mm,
I can't go out like that. And then I think it was like 2 or 3 months later, they had another show. I fought again, and then this time less than half as many people came to support. And man,
yeah.
that made me so upset. And then I knocked actually my second fight. I knocked the guy out in the second round, and then I was just like big chip on my shoulder. I was like, man, I'm gonna keep at this,
Mm.
and I did, man. But yeah, after that first one, like I said, I think the nerves just got to me, and I had to prove something to myself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That was I was gonna ask if it motivated you more, if it kinda, like,
Big
defeated
time.
you, but it seems like it catapulted you into, keep going. That's amazing, and then but yeah, let's just fast forward to this last fight, January 20th, you get your 2nd pro boxing win. Did that go how you expected? Like, leading up to it, was the camp kinda normal for you?
Yeah, it was great. My first pro boxing fight was only on 7 days notice, so it was
Wow.
nice being able to prepare for a fight and put a whole camp together.
Yeah.
The training camp was great. A few little wrenches were thrown right at the very end.
Mm,
I cut down. I don't cut a ton of weight, but I was on weight, ready to go to weigh maybe a couple hours before weigh-ins, and we had that pretty bad snowstorm,
mhm,
and they actually canceled the weigh-ins and pushed it to same-day weigh-ins. So that, I mean, if you're used to weighing in the day before, that kind of throws a wrench in things. So the
yeah,
weigh-ins were then at 9 o'clock the following morning, and so they gave us a 4 pound allowance. So I normally fight at 168 pounds for
mhm,
boxing.
mhm,
So they said I could come in at 172 pounds, and I was at 168. Like I was on weight, ready to go. So then I was eating and drinking, but I didn't want to eat or drink too much. And
right,
and it sounds crazy. I think some other fighters might have this problem. Or I talked to some friends that wrestled in high school and said the same thing happened to them. But since it got pushed to same day weigh-ins, I had like the worst sleep that night
wow,
because I kept having nightmares and I missed weight. Kept having nightmares. I woke up, I was like 177, and the weigh-ins
wow,
were over an hour drive away. So
mhm,
so I had to get up real early. So I ended up waking up at 3:30 in the morning. I never fell back asleep.
oh my
So I
gosh,
was up from 3:30 in the morning till I got home from the fight. So I was just exhausted the whole day. I remember getting my hands wrapped. I couldn't stop yawning.
mhm,
Um, but as far as the fight itself, no, it did not go as I expected. I thought I was going to knock the guy out
mhm,
within 2 rounds. It ended up going all four. He was a tough guy, but skill for skill, I know that I'm light years ahead of him. But
mhm,
his team had a really good game plan. Anytime I started touching him, they would clinch up, and he would wait until the referee broke it,
mhm,
which is very frustrating because I don't just want to win, but I'm going to put on exciting fights. That way, more people want to keep watching me, and the more people that watch you, the more opportunities you could get in the future. You
mhm.
know, I think that fight had a few moments that were exciting, but a lot of just kind of lull moments from my opponent's game plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think the weigh-in and all that stuff threw you off performance-wise, or it was just kinda his game plan, stymied some of that action?
Um, I mean, I would say the weigh-ins and the lack of sleep and everything like that definitely messed with my energy.
Sure.
But once you're in there, and the adrenaline kicks in, I felt fine.
Mhm.
I just think it was more or less his game plan. You know,
Right.
he was a lot shorter than I was, so I was kind of punching down, which is a lot harder than people would imagine. I think people think if you're a lot taller, it's a lot easier. And I'm
Right.
not saying it's not easier, but it just presented different problems,
Sure.
And he was a really strong guy, so when he would clinch up, I really couldn't get free. But
Mhm.
it is what it is. On to the next one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and then, you say you like to put on a show. I saw you have a little bit of the stuff where, he'll swing and miss, and you kinda look for that punch. What do you attribute where do you get that showmanship from?
I just I think part of it is just experience, being relaxed and just living in the moment. But also, I train with a bunch of guys that are real tough, and everybody is just trying to one up everyone else. So,
Yeah.
if I'm training with my brother or I'm training with Christian Carr or there's a few other guys. If I swing at them and I miss, they'll do that to me, and
Right.
I do that to it's kind of just also what it does is it makes your opponent frustrated, kind of gets them off their game. So
Hmm.
then when people get frustrated, they get sloppy. When they get sloppy, they make mistakes, and my job is to capitalize on those mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard of one before with Evander Holyfield. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but a guy lands a really good shot on you, like probably one of his hardest, throughout the fight, and you or no, I'm sorry, I think it's where you land a hard shot and then you look at the floor like as if you slipped or something like that.
Uh huh.
I think that was Evander Holyfield, but I thought that was another funny kind of tactic in the ring.
There's a lot. There's a lot
Yeah,
of little tricks for
yeah.
sure.
But then, just recapping your kind of career. So you are 4-1 as a professional MMA fighter, but you haven't had an MMA fight since 2018, I believe.
Yep.
And then you also 2-0 in kickboxing, then 2-0 in professional boxing. Would you consider yourself like a stand-up specialist, or is that just what you prefer?
No, absolutely. I've been a striker. That's even when I was fighting MMA. Um, all my fights that I won as an amateur and as a professional, I won on the ground with
Mhm.
my grappling. But
Yeah.
by no means do I consider myself a grappler. I only got pretty decent, or slightly above average at grappling because everybody knew I was a striker and had such
Mm,
an extensive kickboxing background.
right.
Um, so all my early amateur fights were just they turned into wrestling matches. So
Mhm.
my MMA coach, my grappling coach Damien, the owner of Gracie 717, he pretty much told me I need to take some time off and just strictly work tons of uh, grappling and wrestling.
Mm,
And then we did that. And then when I came back into the cage, that's how I was winning my fights.
mm.
I definitely consider myself a well-rounded fighter in MMA, but I mean, striking is definitely my specialty and what I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then just besides the showmanship and that side of it, like, how would you describe your style just for anybody that hasn't seen you fight?
I would say I'm technical for sure.
Mm,
I don't like to get in there and just slug and brawl, but if I need to, I will. I mean, I've done that in my last couple fights. If that opportunity presents itself. But
mhm.
yeah, I like to be crafty and be technical and use my experience. I want people to watch me fight and tell that this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do just want to pivot, do some fun side questions. I don't know if you saw the interview with Christian, but I want to ask you the same street brawl question, but I'm gonna change it up a little bit this time. You
Okay.
can only pick guys that fight at like 155 and below, so a bunch of small guys got to join you this time. Who would you pick? Just three guys, like a street brawl, street fight breaks out. Who are you bringing with you? 155 and below.
Damn, only small guys.
Yeah, well, let's
Look, I guess
pretend
because
you're
most
fighting
people.
small guys too, so it's not a bunch of
Okay.
giants that you got to fight.
Okay. Man, you know what?
Makes it a little trickier.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, man, I would have to take my man, and even though he's not famous yet, I would have to take my man Christian Carr because I feel like his haircut would throw people off, and
Mm,
then he'd kick them in the
mustache.
stomach, and and then they'd start falling down. You know what, man? My if you didn't say small guys, I would have said all I need is my brother, but
Mm,
as my brother's bigger, stronger, and meaner than me, but man, I'll tell you what, if I can only have somebody 155 or below, even if I could pick multiple people, I think I would just take Christian, man. That dude has got unbelievable amount of talent. I think we'd be the dream team if we were tag team partners. So
yeah.
I would just pick him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great answer. And like that's your boy. He's gonna have your back. It's not like
Of
you gotta
course.
question anything.
Yeah,
Um, and then just dream training partner. If you could pull anybody, UFC or like boxer, MMA guy, whatever, dream training partner for the day.
um, training partner. If it was kickboxing, I would choose Nicky Holskin.
Mm,
He's my favorite kickboxer of all time. He just fought at one championship over the weekend against Akiyama,
mm,
knocked him out in the first round. He's got hundreds and hundreds of fights with some insane record. I named one of my dogs after him. You know, he's like my all-time favorite kickboxer, and he just has so much experience and great distance and timing. I feel like I could learn a lot from him.
Hmm.
And if it was boxing, I would have to choose the GOAT, Floyd Mayweather Jr. You know, he's the greatest, and I feel like he's has the best defense in the history of boxing. And I would love to learn more about his timing and his range. So either of those two guys would be, man, I'd it would make my day for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Those are great choices. And then just so outside of like UFC and like the larger MMA promotions, there's not a lot of like big feel promotions in fighting. Like aside from like you got karate combat, you got the bare knuckle stuff going on right now that's sort of taken off. As a fan, just which of those do you like watching more? Do you have a preference? Do you like them both?
Um, I mean, it's crazy that you say that because I actually watch both of them extensively. I think they're both really cool. The bare knuckle boxing is definitely brutal, and
Mm,
it's a little crazy. And I'm quite the adrenaline junkie, so I feel like, man, if I could compete in that, I think I have a great style for it.
mm,
And yeah, we'll see what happens. But karate combat as well. Like their rule set is really intriguing. It's basically kickboxing with takedowns, and you're wearing MMA gloves. So I
mm.
feel like my style blends really well with that. But I'm a big fan of both those promotions, and yeah, we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, and then just to break down each one, like, a little bit, like, the bare knuckle stuff, like, how do you I've heard, like, Masvidal and different fighters talk about, like, the difference just with the technique and everything without
Yeah,
having gloves, right? How punches can kinda slip through, even smaller guards, like, how do you think just your style would transition to bare knuckles specifically?
I think with bare knuckle, you can't throw your strikes at full clip because then
Mm,
you risk hurting your hands. You know,
right.
you only have two weapons in boxing, so you got to make sure you're using them carefully and you're picking your shots.
Mm,
The guys that I see that just go out there and start brawling and getting reckless, they seem like the guys who get cut the most, and they seem like the guys who their hands get hurt the most. So I
mm,
feel like you just have to be really defensively responsible. Maybe not rely so much on a tight high guard because, like you said, it could sneak around. But
right.
a lot of head movement, good footwork, and then just picking your shots like a sniper and
Mm,
not being too aggressive. But the rounds are also shorter; they're only 2 minutes.
right.
So you kind of do have to be aggressive in a way. But I just think doing it a little more technically and picking your shots. The guys um, that do really well in there either have a cinder block for a head or they're very technical. And
Mhm.
last time I checked, my head's not a cinder block, so I would have to just be a little bit more slick and just use my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then just for the karate combat side, like, what do you think? I don't even know if I understand that rule set entirely. I think they're still kind of working as they go with like the grounded opponent stuff and
Yeah,
just but what do you think about that environment? Like the pit, and I think
yeah,
most of your stuff's outside. It's like a Florida vibe or wherever they do
yeah,
theirs. Like what do you think of just that environment? And then that's growing massively over the last few years also.
yeah. It's blowing up huge, and I love it. I think it looks crazy. I mean, their last fight was the 26th of January, and they did it in the backyard of a mansion in Miami, and
Yeah,
there
forgot
were
about
actually like the
that.
cops raided it and everything, and they were like running through the fights really quick because the house was surrounded. They thought they were having a house party. Um, like Rick Ross was there hosting the event. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. You know, I hope that it sticks around, and I don't know if it'll be that wild all the time, but I think it's so cool. And as far as the rule set goes, it kind of reminds me of like I fought K1 style, which
Mhm.
is punches, kicks. You could throw knees, but without that tie clinch, and that's
Mm,
actually the style that I enjoy the most.
mhm.
Um, and then the takedowns, I think you can only do like throws or sweeps. You can't shoot like a double leg like a traditional wrestling style.
Right.
Again, I think that's really cool. And the grounded opponent thing, yeah, I think you can only hit your opponent for like 5 seconds, but you can't ground yourself. You can either stand over your opponent or knee on belly. Like I said,
Mm.
it's a little bit tricky, but I think also some people just overthink it. And I like that it's the little gloves. I think that makes it more interesting.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's so cool, man. I would do it tomorrow if they offered it to me.
Yeah.
It's very intriguing.
That's a beautiful segue because I'm gonna ask, bare knuckle calls you tomorrow, karate combat calls you tomorrow, the offer's looking the same, same distance travel, the purse is the same. Like what fight do you think you'd accept? There's obviously a lot of time you can do both, but just that first one, what do you think?
Man, that's a tough one. I would I would maybe have to go with karate combat just um because they have gloves
Mhm.
and less risk that I'm going to get cut up. I've had, I believe, between amateur and pro, I think I've had 45 fights, and
Mhm.
I've never been cut once. And I feel like every single person that fights bare knuckle gets cut.
Mhm.
Um, but I would probably choose karate combat if it
Mhm.
was the same pay. Um, but I still would love to do both, just
Yeah.
because I'm a little bit crazy, and I feel like BKFC, bare knuckles, a lot of it crazy. So I
Mhm.
think it would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, you even see guys at the highest level of UFC. Like I saw a recent vlog with Tom Aspinall, and he's like talking to Michael Venom Page, and he's like, maybe before I'll retire, I'll get one bare knuckle fight in just to do it. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of that intrigue is there for guys that just want to do something wild and mix it up for their
Yep.
resume. But yeah, I think
For
it's
sure.
amazing. I think all of it is great to see, just the different platforms and everything like that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about noble boxing and a little bit
Hmm.
about your personal stuff, the t-shirts and everything like that. If you could just tell
Yeah.
us what that is and what that means to you.
Yeah. So I have like a really chaotic work schedule. I work 12-hour swing shifts. So I don't always have the availability to go to Gracie 717, which is the gym that I primarily represent.
Mhm.
Um, so it started out, I bought like a double end bag and a heavy bag, and we're just hitting it in my house just to kind of stay in shape for the days I couldn't make it. And
Sure.
then over time, I just started getting more equipment and just slowly building a gym downstairs. And it's been getting more and more official. And, it started out just me and my brother working out down there. He lives like 5 minutes down the street. And then other people saw pictures and videos and asked if they could come. And then it just started blowing up. And then now I have classes 4 days a week that I teach. And we had class last night. I think there was 7 or 8 people here,
Mhm.
which is good for being at my house. It's just a big unfinished basement. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's pretty legit. I mean, everybody that comes in has a really good time. I help people that, whether they're fighters, um, amateur, professional, or just average people just wanting to learn uh, the fundamentals of boxing, or just maybe get in shape and lose weight. I mean,
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter to me. I don't have a preference of who I teach. I just like helping people out. I feel like I know too much not to teach. Um, and then yeah, I have the Noble Boxing shirts. I was gonna wear one, but I have it in the laundry. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm selling those for $20. You know, they're pretty cool. My brother designed those and made them for me, and
Mhm.
all the money I'm raising for the shirts goes towards my brother's trip. He's fighting in Scotland for a kickboxing world championship this June. So anything I could do to help him out, that's kind of where the shirts idea came from.
Mhm.
But man, I sold them, most of them. I'm pretty much sold out. I think I might only have one or two left. So I'm gonna place another order here soon. And it's just cool seeing people wear them. They train with me, so having that supporter at my fights, people wear the shirts. That's always cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then I want to talk about your brother a little bit. Just what's
Mhm.
that like, just having somebody so close? It's like a permanent training partner, pretty much available, whenever.
Yeah,
What's that like? And then the camaraderie just between you guys and like growing up and all that stuff.
yeah. So Jake's 7 years younger than me,
Oh wow.
so I've been beating him up his whole life. And then when he was 14, he started training with me. Um, and then he hit a growth spurt and got my size, and then it got a lot more competitive. And
Mm,
then now he's bigger than me, and it's not as competitive. um, but I'm just glad we're on the same team. But it's great. He's my number one training partner. He's my biggest motivator, and I'm just trying to keep up with him. He's
mm,
crushing it. He's I believe 6-0 or 7-0, as a 7-0, I believe, as a kickboxer right now. A national champion. He just won the New York State Championship the week before my last fight. And then, yeah, in June we're flying to Scotland so we can fight for a world championship. I mean, he's the real deal, Holyfield. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's my favorite fighter, and I'm happy that I could just play a small role in the success that he has. But I honestly think he would be just as successful without me. But
Mm.
just because of his drive and determination. But yeah, man, I'm just happy to be along for the ride.
Yeah. No, that's super exciting. I'm sure, hopefully we can have him on at some point also, maybe after in June or July.
Okay.
That's massive though to go to Scotland. Is that by far like the biggest trip you guys have ever taken for a fight?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, so in August we went to the national championships. It was a big 3-day tournament, and then in the finals, going into the finals, Jake was 5-0, and he fought a guy who was I think he was like 25-2, so lots of experience on Jake, and Jake won every single round, completely dominated the fight, and won the national championship, and then that's how he got invited to the world championship. But yeah, this will be the biggest trip ever. I've actually this will only be the second time I've ever been on a plane. The first time was to go skydiving, so I've still never even landed on a
Oh, wow.
plane. Yeah,
That's crazy.
so I'm actually more nervous for the flight than I am for the fight. I don't get nervous too much for my brother's fights because I know how good he is, um, and I think he's deceptively. I mean, he looks strong, but he's
Mhm.
deceptively stronger than what he looks.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't really worry about his fights too much. Yeah, I'm a little nervous for flying over there. Like I said, I've only been on a plane once and I jumped off. So
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I can't wait to see how that goes for him. I'm sure he'll do great. Um,
yeah,
but, I'm supposed to ask you, what does newspaper mean to you?
uh, that's Christian Carr. Yeah,
A little inside scoop there.
yeah. So Christian and we had a fight coming up at the Lancaster host. I believe we were both fighting on the card, but we were fighting in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, our hometown, and the newspaper. A lady from the newspaper came in to do interviews with us, and
Mm,
we were in the middle of a training session, and it was only him and I. It was like a one-on-one session on like a Sunday morning or something like that, and the lady showed up while we were doing these drills, and I didn't know if she was recording or what she was, or if she was taking pictures or just what she was doing. So I think I don't even know if I said anything to Christian, but I basically was like, "Hey, let's keep this intense so we look good, just in case she is recording." And we just went so hard for like the full round, and then afterwards had to pretend like we weren't out of breath. And yeah, it was just funny. And actually, the combination that we were drilling, um, we call it newspaper. So if he's
mhm.
fighting and I yell out newspaper, he knows exactly what to do. Vice versa.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome.
Christian's a character, man.
Yeah. And then, just, what's your take on sparring? I like to ask different guys, like, how are you, Sean Strickland, where you're doing it all the time, or is it, just based on how you're feeling, or how do you kinda manage that?
Yeah. I think it depends on the individual. I think that the younger that fighters are in their career, the more often they should spar. And by more often, I would say no more than 3 times a week, preferably maybe two. Um, but the longer and more experience you get, probably the less you have to spar. I
Mm,
typically spar once a week if I have a fight coming up. Most injuries occur during sparring. Um,
hmm,
Sparring is the most fun out of all things in training for most fighters,
right.
and myself included. But just for injury prevention, I try to have my guys only do it once or twice a week.
Mm,
But I think it's very necessary and very important. But if you get guys that are really experienced, or just have been doing it a long time, I don't think it's necessary to do it all the time. Maybe just like when you're in training camp. So, but I think it's a fight by fight basis. But if let's say you didn't have any experience and you joined my gym and you're looking to compete, I would suggest that you spar at least once a week,
mm,
for quite a while before you take that fight. But yeah, I really only spar if I have a fight coming up, and I typically do it once a week. But I have friends that spar, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Yeah.
My only issue with that is that I see a lot of injuries happen, whether it's your hands or you go to throw a punch, someone gets out of the way and you hyperextend and bang your elbow.
Right.
People are constantly hurting their feet. If it's kickboxing or MMA sparring, you go to throw a kick, someone moves, you hit them in their knee or their elbow. I mean, there's just a lot of injuries that happen. Um,
Yeah.
I think it just needs to be a little bit controlled. But at the same time, I think that it shouldn't be as hard as a fight. But
Mm,
I do think that sparring should be intense. I don't agree with like really light touch sparring because I've never had a fight that was like that. I
right.
also don't think you should be trying to knock your training partners out. I
Right.
think that sparring should be supervised by the coach. And I think you should be going around 70 to 80% intensity,
Mm,
unless you're going with someone who's a beginner. I said I can go on and on about sparring forever.
mm,
I'm actually pretty on top of it when my guys are sparring. But
mm.
I think there's a time and a place, and it depends on the person's experience level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really the only way to simulate, like, those live rounds, they say, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then just how do you think your training, like, has evolved, as your experience has grown? Like, maybe you're taking recovery more seriously? Are you, like,
Mhm.
adding anything like a yoga or meditation or, like a cold plunge? Like, have you added anything to your training as you've gone? And then how do you think just your process has evolved over the years?
I think the one thing that I can contribute the most of my recent success to is definitely how I train and just not doing too much. As crazy as that sounds, like
Mm,
most of my training sessions are 1 hour, sometimes they're an hour and a half, and that's like the longest I'll have. Where when I was fighting professional MMA, my trainings were 3.5 to 4 hours a day,
mhm,
5 or 6 days a week. Um, or at least 5 of those days were close to 4 hours, and one of the days might have been 2 hours. Um, but I just think that guys do too much, and your body can only take so much, and
right,
then that's when like I said, those injuries happen. I was plagued with injuries in the beginning of my professional career and
mm,
the end of my amateur career, which is why I took so much time off. Um, so yeah, I think just training smarter and not doing too much.
mm.
I actually have started doing the ice baths. It's a little cold right now to be doing them,
Yeah,
um, but I did start doing them for my first fight back.
mm,
Back in September, it was a kickboxing fight. I was training with Christian, and I saw him doing them, and he spoke real highly of them. And I said, if Christian really likes it, then it's something that I'm really interested in because, he's really smart, and an experienced competitor. So that's something I adopted as well. It definitely helps with recovery. I've just been a little bit of a chicken because it's so cold outside right now.
yeah,
But
it's
but yeah, I definitely do those as well.
Hi guys, Miranda Maverick here, UFC Flyweight. I hope you guys are enjoying the interview so far. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe before you get back to the video.
I
mm.
don't think you're going to catch me doing any yoga. I do stretch a little bit, um, but I haven't done any of that yet.
Yeah,
Um, and just listening to my body. I have days that are a little bit more intense. I call them my high impact days, and then I
mhm,
have my days that are my low impact days. I might just focus on like light cardio and calisthenics. Um, and so far, it's been working really well.
mhm, yeah, and then, just what advice would you give to any, like, young fighters, maybe 17, 18, like, just getting into it, just starting? You spoke on it a little bit with the training,
Yeah.
sparring and recovery and stuff like that, but any just overall advice for anybody just starting out?
Yeah, I would say if you don't have any experience, try to get with a trainer or a coach that has experience. The first couple coaches I had, they either had very little to no experience, so it was a lot of trial and error. And I've taken some losses and some bad injuries by because of their lack of experience.
Mm,
So I would just say make sure you have a team that knows what they're doing and is established. In my boxing gym that I have, I mean, I have all my fight photos and my medals and my trophies and my belts all hung up on the wall, so so people when they come train with me, they know I'm not a con artist. You can see, what I'm doing. Not my very first trainer, but the first trainer I had that I fought under. Um, I won't put him on blast, but I will say that after I had like my third fight, he told me that I had more fights than him. But when I joined the gym, he told me he had like 20 something fights, and I said, "Well, how many do you have?" and he said, I'm 1-1 as an amateur. And
Oh
he
my
made it sound like he had tons of amateur and professional experience. So, it wasn't my first coach, but it was the first coach that I fought with. And
God.
man, like right then I was like, now it makes sense why we're struggling so much. Um, but
That's
yeah, I would say just getting a gym that has that track record, that experience, and and do your cardio, because as one of my coaches will always say, cardio is overrated till you need it. And
mm,
nobody wants to run. Everybody wants to lift weights and talk about how much they can bench press and their strength and conditioning. Listen, man, I don't I do the meat and potatoes. Yeah, I do my push-ups and my sit-ups, and I do my bag work. But I run, and I run a lot, and I promise you cardio is overrated till you need it. You get a guy that looks big and strong, but they're only big and strong for about a round, maybe a round and a half, and then they're huffing and puffing. That the boxing fight I had in November, the dude I fought was huge. I mean, he was stacked, and he kept talking about how much stronger he is than me. He was flexing at the weigh-ins. In the fight, he before the fight started, he's yelling at me saying, "I'm too weak for him." You know, and I looked at him dead in his eyes and I said, "We'll see."
mm,
And by round three, the guy couldn't breathe, and I was just picking him apart. And he actually quit on the stool in between rounds because
wow.
he just had no gas in his tank. So
Mm,
cardio is overrated till you need it. I mean, not having cardio and being in a fist fight, it sucks, man. And I've
yeah.
been there, and I don't want to see anybody else, none of my guys ever be there. So I would say cardio over almost anything.
Yeah. How did that feel when he quit on the stool? How satisfying was that for you?
In the moment, I was very disappointed because I wanted to knock him out.
Yeah.
But after the fight, my brother called. I was actually pretty upset. On the pay per view, the camera was actually facing me, and one of my cornermen were like, "The fight's over. He quit." And and then I started saying some obscenities, and then on the way home, I was just pretty bummed out, like happy that I won, but
Yeah.
not happy that I didn't get to sit him down.
Mm,
My brother, he's like, dude, you made a grown man quit on the stool, and a
yeah.
guy that was talking a lot of crap, not just during the fight, but that whole day that we got to the event. Every time I saw him, he had something to say. He was just trying to get into my head, which, I mean, if you have as much experience as I do, that kind of stuff doesn't really matter. I kind of
Right.
like it. I knew it was just zapping his energy, but yeah, it was nice. It was nice having somebody quit just from exhaustion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I would look at it the same way too. Like you had the killer instinct, you wanted to finish him, but making somebody quit, I think is, probably not just as satisfying, but pretty close.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then now you just had a fight and Christian also fought recently. You mentioned your brother's coming up in June, but like just what else can we look out for? Like either from, some of your guys or from yourself, like what can we look out for in the future from just everybody?
I would just say stay tuned because uh, I didn't rack up all these fights by not being active. I do my best work when I'm consistently busy. So maybe I'm fighting in a couple weeks. It hasn't been announced yet, or maybe it doesn't work out, and I'll fight a few weeks after that. But my goal is to have 6 fights this year,
Mm.
um, or more. But my realistic goal is to have 6 fights, and we're so far this year I've had one, and it's February, I think, 3rd today, so second or third. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm hoping that I could get one this month. If not, definitely next month. I just want to keep this momentum going. So definitely stay tuned. My brother, yeah, he has that fight in June. I'm hoping that he could get at least one in before then because that's pretty far away.
Hmm.
And then at Christian, I really hope that he could have an active year because he's pursuing the dream of making it to the UFC, and I think if anybody could do it, it's him. He has the style, he has the look, he has the finishes. He just got his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so huge shout out, congratulations to him. Tonight
Yes.
will actually be the first time I've seen him since he got it. Um, I mean,
Better
I've
watch
known
out.
Christian. Yeah, I've known Christian since he was a kid. I wouldn't. I said it before. I don't think I taught Christian how to throw his first punch correctly, but I don't think I taught him how to throw his first punch because if my brother was Josh Carr, I'm sure he was punching him for years.
Mhm.
Um, but I've been training Christian forever, and just to see how much he's grown over the years is amazing. And I really hope that he can stay active and healthy and just rack a lot of wins this year, because I feel like the sky is the limit for him. And
Yeah.
the same with my brother. My brother's just more focused on kickboxing. There's
Mhm.
not as many platforms in kickboxing as there is MMA, but all the big ones he's currently competing for. So
Mhm.
I think he's going to have a really good year as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and then I just wanna go do you watch UFC? Like, are you a pretty big fan, or do you watch it
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
actively? I just wanna look up UFC 299 and do some of those. Maybe not
okay,
necessarily predictions, but how you feel about some of those. We can start with the
uh-huh.
main event, Cheeto and Sean. How do you think that fight goes?
Man, that's a rematch. Cheeto won the first one pretty handily, from what I remember.
He
Um,
got, he, kicked his Sean still doesn't claim that loss because it,
yeah,
shut down his nerve or something like that. He
yeah,
said
his
Yeah,
his perennial nerve. Yeah,
I think
it's
it was
those
a
calf
loss.
kicks, man. They're brutal.
Right,
I mean, it could be anybody that gets kicked there. It doesn't matter the experience level. Once you
right,
get kicked there a few times, I mean, you kind of have like a dead leg and your ankle starts rolling.
yeah,
Um, but I think that Sugar Sean's got so much momentum going right now that and he just seems so focused. And Cheeto, even though I do really like Cheeto a lot, I just think he starts too slow, man. He doesn't really get going until the later rounds, and I feel like this is uh this is Sean's time, and I think that he stops him.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I spoke with Christian a little bit about it. I think off air, we didn't get it on record, but he's
Okay.
not the biggest Sean fan, I understand.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think Cheeto he looks stuck in the mud sometimes. I mean,
yeah,
he
yeah,
got that beautiful head kick, knockout of Dom Cruz, but that was, like, the 4th round.
yeah,
I think if Sean
yeah.
just put it on
I
him early, it's gonna be trouble.
I really like him. I like both guys, but
Yeah,
I just feel like Sean's a little bit more of a fast starter,
yeah,
and he has that touch of death in his right hand. And Cheeto, even though he can crack and he's technical, I feel like it takes a little bit to get going for him, and I don't think Sean's the guy to do that against.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, this card is stacked. We don't have to go through all of them, but I think the co-main, like Dustin Poirier versus that Benoit Saint Denis,
Yeah,
he's a savage, man. There's a lot of those new wave 155 guys coming up, like Arman Sarukian and Gamrod and
yeah.
Fiziev, obviously, but Saint Denis is another one. How do you see that one?
You know, I think both guys are extremely dangerous, but um, I mean, I've been a big Poirier fan since before he was in the UFC.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna have to root for him, and I'm pulling for him. I think experience is going to be the biggest factor. I mean, Poirier's been in there with some of the best guys in the world, and he has a lot of 5 round experience. A lot
yeah,
of those uh, just fights that went into the trenches where he had to dig deep. I mean, he fought what was his name? I think his name was Joe Duffy. It was a 3 round fight years ago. I
mhm,
mean, he got his nose, Poirier got his nose like completely smashed in the first round,
yeah,
and he used that veteran savviness and just found a way to win and just grinded the guy out.
yeah.
I just feel like he has more tools and more tricks. But that being said, I mean, it could go either way for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and then just the last one, there's so many fights, but
For
you got,
sure. It's a good
uh,
card.
Peter Yan and Song Yadong. I mean, 2 that's my personal favorite, division
Okay.
to watch in MMA. The
Yeah.
135ers are so stacked, but,
Yeah.
Peter Yan, Song Yadong, I don't know. I still don't really feel like Yan lost to O'Malley. That was such a close
Yeah.
fight, but Yadong is another one of those rising. He's, an alpha male Uriah Faber guy.
Yeah.
Just how do you see that one going?
I mean, that's another real close one for sure. But I think that Peter Yard, I think he's fell on some tough times.
Yeah,
He's lost a couple fights that I thought he was going to win. So I think that he's going to come out with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. So
yeah.
I think he's going to pull it off. But I think it's going to be a close fight.
Yeah, yeah, that whole division and 299 is some people are saying is shaping up better than 300 even, but they
So
didn't
far,
announce that 300 main event yet, but both those
yeah.
cards are completely stacked. But awesome. I think that's all I have for you. Just before I let you go, if you just want to plug your socials and where can we find you?
I only have Instagram. It's Zak Noble, ZakNoble. I post all things fight related or anything to do with my dogs. It all
Yeah,
it all goes on there. Um, and yeah, just big shout out to all my friends, family, fans, and supporters. I wouldn't be where I'm at without your guys' support. And in order for me to reach that next level, I need things like this. You know, you taking the time out to give me these interviews, and people just continuously supporting. It's not always about what you know, but who you know or how popular you are. So I would love to reach that next level. There's not a lot of things that I have left on my bucket list as far as fighting is concerned, and making it to one of those big shows is definitely one of them. So, as much support as I could get, I'd be forever grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be sick. I'm gonna be plugging for you hard. I think those karate combat pants would look sick on you.
Yeah, I'd wear them all the time. I wouldn't just wear them when I fight.
Right,
Yeah,
pajamas to
yeah,
go, breakfast.
yeah. Anything, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Can't wait to watch your journey and just see where it all goes.
Thank you very much, man.